hot transactions, week 6 picks, and previews up next on episode 103 of the UFL Podcast.
1, 2, 3.
To another amazing edition of the UFL Podcast. I'm the ref representing Pro Football Newsroom, the leaders in spring football news. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we got a big week for you. But before we get started, I'm joined, as always, by my man, Zach Kyleman. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm feeling a little rushed. The year's moving by so quickly. We're at the mid-season mark already. It's like just yesterday that we were talking about week 1 and watching Birmingham lose to DC and kind of questioning what the season's going to be like. It's funny, we're still kind of feels like we're at that point, very lost in the weeds as to how this whole thing is going to end. But boy, I'll tell you, it's been fun. I think it lives up to what we've talked about so far. The most competitive season of spring football yet has been. Feeling very much that billing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you asked anybody, Stallions fans are starting to feel the heat out there. We talked about it a little bit on Monday with Jace, but he's the first one to say, this is probably the most competitive we've seen spring football since we've seen kind of the resurgence of spring football back with the AAF and then the XFL 2020 and the Spring League and the USFL and the XFL again. And now with all of those things merged, you really have kind of the best of the best, and even some of the best of the best are still trying to get into the league or get back into the league in some instances, right? And so we're seeing it on paper. The guys that are usually out there winning every game, they're having a little bit tougher time this time around. But hey, this is where things get interesting, because now it's the final push to the playoffs. You say final push, we're at the halfway point. Well, Zach, usually, I mean, you look at last year, the years before, some of these things already felt locked in, where Memphis and Houston, believe it or not, still have a shot in this. And this weekend, as we get into the picks, there's a lot on the line as we get into it. But before we get into all that stuff, a couple things. First, like the video. It's free. It costs nothing. It feels so good.
What are you waiting for? Do it.
You want to do it. Subscribe. Click the bell. It builds morale. It also lets you know when we go live, just like every Monday with Around the UFL. It also lets you know when we drop new videos, just like with this one with the UFL Podcast. And you know what? It's also going to let you know when SummerStock, the road to the UFL Championship, goes live. Like I said, we don't have a specific time because it's our greatest challenge and our greatest journey. Zachy boy and I were hitting the road. We're heading out from Newsroom HQ. We're driving all the way to St. Louis to the UFL Championship, and we have a lot of stops planned along the way. Zach, we're hitting up Route 66. I know we're going to be seeing some soda reviews. We're going to be trying out some brisket and Bucky. I'm not going to ruin all of the stops, but we have a whole lot of things planned along the way. And like I said, guys, this is the craziest part. We're leaving on Thursday the 12th. We're wrapping up recording on Friday the 13th, which that maybe it's a good omen, maybe it's a bad one. I thought about this. I noticed this after we came up with these plans. But anyway, the video, we're planning on dropping it that Friday the 13th at the latest midnight going into the 14th. So you have a whole day to watch SummerStock, the road to the UFL Championship, before you watch the UFL Championship itself. But even if you watch it after the game, we're going to have so many things in there that even if we're talking about the game, we're going to have so many other things that you're really not going to want to miss in there. But that's why you should click the bell. Long way of saying click the bell. It builds morale, but it'll also let you know when that goes live. Zach, I mean, we've been planning this. We're getting things in order. We've talked about all of our redundancy plans. We've talked about microphones and cameras and drones and routes. We've looked at multiple routes and different locations. I don't know. We don't have to say which one, but is there a spot on this list that you're looking forward to like the most? Because I think I was telling you beforehand, there's two that stick out to me other than the obvious, which is White Castle. I'll tell you that one. I won't get into my trepidations about the White Castle, but I am very much excited to eat the White Castle.
Well, trepidations aside, I mean, I always enjoy heading to the White Castle, and I'll admit there's two of them out here in Arizona. They hit different in the Midwest. It's a Midwestern establishment, so and East Coast, but it hits different when you go out to the Midwest. I'll be honest with you, it's kind of like back home a little bit for me. I'm actually having on my map. I'm looking for Pop 66. Actually, that's the one that I am full set to investigate and enjoy. We've already had plenty of talk about what we're gonna do there with not only visiting for lunch, but I mean, as you guys know, I'm a soda junkie and I enjoy talking about and reviewing some unique stuff. And I can already tell from just the Google Maps images alone, they're going to have some stuff I have not seen before. So I am thrilled to go and grab something there. Route 66 it's Americana. So either one of the museums we're already looking at. And the one that you found that I didn't realize about. So, cause you got the Four Corners out here this way, which I still have yet to visit, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah, with that spot out this way in the West. But out in middle America, there's the tri-state corner, which you found, and I have to give you props for finding that. That's going to be Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. So we're going to be able to stop at that marker on the way and kind of take a snap and hopefully see some buffalo. It looks like
apparently it's where
right
the buffalo roam.
Yeah.
They say it in the song, and now we might see it in reality, at least according to Google Maps. We might get there and it's just going to be an empty pen. I don't know. I
mean, I'm crossing my fingers those images aren't messing with me, and I'm going to double check. Because buffalo are pretty damn cool. They're like battle cows. So,
worst case, AI is so easy to use now. We'll put some buffalo in there somehow.
Stamp them right in.
Just Zach and I riding on some buffalo, drinking some pop.
We told you there was cows here.
Yeah,
buffalo here.
Yeah, man. But the road trip is going to be amazing. And the one thing we haven't talked about, but I'll just bring it up on the show, like the road trip back. Like we're taking the long way there. So in theory, the road trip back is going to be completely different. And so I almost need to start looking at what are some things we can do, even if we don't record it, but what can we see on the way back, Out
of curiosity, I am going to look this up while we're talking, because if I'm right, and I think we are right, we might traverse, especially with the three corners, keep that in mind. It'll be 5 states, hopefully, because I guarantee you that the trip back is going to make us go through Arkansas.
Oh, it will, 100%.
So yeah, we might have 5 states marked off our map, off of our little map, by the end of this trip.
Well, we might as well just go over the bridge and go over to Illinois.
Well, we could check off Illinois, but I mean, look, if you're already trepidatious about White Castle, do you really want to go to East St. Louis? I bring this name up because it does ring out jitters to those that are in the area. This is a name that
I only need a few minutes in the state of Illinois, the soil that the Chicago Bears play on. It doesn't need to be Chicago. It just needs to be within the state boundaries. I only need purely a few minutes if you want to knock off another state on that list, Zachy boy.
Well, no
surprises. I have nothing up my sleeve, and I have two.
Now there is a casino across the river. Oh. Called the Casino Queen. I don't know how good it is, and honestly, leave in the comments if you want to let us know how it is, because we're still planning stuff, because we're gonna get in early. Like the championship game, this is what's different about years past. So it's in prime time on Saturday. It's an 8:00 start Eastern time, 7:00 Central. So we have all day. Plus, we'll hit the tailgates eventually, but we're gonna get in Friday, and probably have a little time.
We
too.
can do the zoo.
So.
Maybe we have SummerStock Day 2 at the zoo. If it rhymes, Zach, it's meant to be.
You're fitting it in?
I'm all about the alliteration, but I found out the zoo is free. And you also know if it's free, it's me. And so so anyway, you're right though, Zach. We do have a whole day ahead. Like, because we could hit up even if we went to the tailgates at 2, that's still a whole chunk of a day that we can float around and do some stuff. I didn't think about that. Well,
yeah,
that's at least another stop at the White Castle. I know that much.
I have one request for that day.
Yeah.
Because it is a staple that my dad and I went to when we went in 2020. It was the last thing we did before we left St. Louis. Ted Drew's Frozen Custard in St. Louis, Missouri.
I was going to say that.
It is a wonderful ice cream and custard shop.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yeah, I did it when we were out there last time with my dad as well. So yes, book it. We're there.
Yeah, it's a little, like I said, it's a tad outside the city, but it is worth the trip. And we'll have plenty of time on Saturday before the game to go out and get a scoop or two.
Hell yeah.
So
I'm getting a
might as well
banana
add that to the map notes, and we can talk about that as we do with our itinerary. But
hell yeah.
Yeah, shout out to those guys. That is an incredible place. And if you live out there and you haven't been there, I'm sorry, what are you doing? I've been there once in my life in the last 5 years, and I still talk about this spot.
So you heard it here, folks. Day 2 at the zoo day 2 of SummerStock is visiting the zoo, having an ice cream social, and then tailgating.
This sounds great.
In whichever order you want, I guess, except for the tailgate is last. Anyway.
This sounds like a good time. We'll keep divulging plans as we do episodes. It's be a fun month ahead.
Yes, no, this is going to be good.
And I did confirm the travel back does indeed. And I do quote, does indeed take you through Arkansas. However, this would be up to you, and we should debate it off show. You know what wouldn't be
the
too
Clinton
far?
Library? Yeah, we should stop.
What library? Excuse me?
The Bill Clinton Library? Is that what you're going to bring up?
Well, okay. I mean, we definitely need, we now need to do itinerary back. I take that back. But
okay.
I
thought that's where you were going with this. Sorry.
Here's my pitch. We can make the 6 states.
Okay. All right. Tell me more.
I look at this trip and I say, you know what's not too far off and we have enough time to do? Memphis, Tennessee. Wow. We can go to Graceland.
Oh, man. Let me look at the map. I would love to do Graceland.
We'll talk.
I would love to do Graceland.
Yeah, if it's possible. Well, this is the return trip, of course, but
let's look. Yeah. Let's look at the because honestly, Zach, it could be 100 miles apart. It could be 1,000 miles apart. If you're asking me to know where Memphis, Tennessee is on a map in comparison to St. Louis and Texas, you got the wrong guy.
It's okay. It's okay.
We'll look at.
I'm so tempted now. That's all I'm telling you. I'm actually looking at it right now.
But you got.
Oh my God, this is very possible.
Okay, because I would love to do Graceland. It's one of those things.
I just did the map, taking off Montgomery, Texas, and putting in Memphis saved us an hour and a half. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, all right.
We might be able to do this.
All right. Well, let's take a look then. We'll take a look at that. Let's get into the show. I just realized we got a whole show here.
It's football time. You've heard our plans. Let's talk football. It's a go time.
So we're going to talk about it because if we don't, we're going to hear it in the comments. Although we did talk about it on Monday, but there has been a little bit of news since then. So Samson Nacua, we all know the situation. There was an altercation in the stands after the game between the Panthers and the Battlehawks in the Dome. There were some rowdy Battlehawks fans. The video cuts in and it shows them bantering back and forth, and it ends with Nacua slapping the fan, which I think we all agree, whether it's the NFL, the NHL, the UFL, MLS, you really shouldn't have players interacting with the fans in that type of manner, right? We get it. At the same time, I have seen rumors, I'll call them a rumor because I don't know if this is true, but I have seen rumors online from, I think, Nacua's family or possibly.
It was,
I'll have to double check this.
Yeah, it was one of the players' family members that's sitting by. It wasn't the Nacua family, but
yeah, thank you.
You are correct.
According to them, the fan had spit on Samson Nacua, which Still, even if the fan did that, I don't think he should have responded by slapping him.
Yeah.
But it does give a little bit of context to the situation, potentially. So here's the news that's come out. And I don't think there's any, well, I have actually seen some people disagree with it. Maybe we talk about that a little bit. But the news is he's been suspended for 1 game without pay, which, I mean, that is actually a tough break for a 10-week season.
It is a tough break.
Right? He's also agreed to do community service, which is going to be set up by the league at a future time, which I think that's kind of neat. I think maybe that should have replaced the no pay, but you know what? He seems to be taking it graciously. Mm-hmm. I've seen fans online, I guess in both directions, but I've seen a few more fans online say, no, he should have a longer suspension. I suspect those fans are only saying that to benefit their team because they're probably going to play the Panthers later this season and want, them to be down a player. But I think, honestly, at the end of the day, I think 1 game is fair. We can maybe debate on the pay, but I think any more than 1 game is maybe overkill, especially if the fans spit on him. But I do think the league, by responding at all, is good. It shows that they are a professional league. They do take these things seriously. They're not just going to let players run rampant. They're not going to let. What I would like to know is if there is repercussions for the fan, or an investigation in the fan, because I do think if the fans spit on him, there should be some repercussions for that too.
Right.
Call me crazy.
No, I think in a perfect world, yeah, you would hear that. We would be hearing about at least a fan having some sort of maybe in other sports, life ban would be kind of the term I'd be throwing around in terms of like if he was anyway involved or certain fans were anyway involved with provocation or whatever of this incident. This is tough though because the league and any professional athletes, you are expected to be held to a high standard. Yes, fans do go over the top. And I do think there are fans that do go way too far with some of their rhetoric, whether it is in our own football scene. NBA, I know, has a ton of talk about that because it's a lot more close and intimate to the action too. It's tough, and I do, it is also, you're adding the fact that, in game, you're having emotions run high. This is a game where it got, in later stages in the second half, from what I understand, this is when this happened, where it's getting kind of down to the wire, teams catching up, and it's a big close matchup. Yeah, emotions kind of run tense, and it sucks. But I think that if you are the league and obviously if you do nothing, it's not going to look great. And I do think Samson knows right away that, that being caught on video was probably something that he was going to have to answer for, and there was going to be talk about it. And in any case, in a situation like that, yes, you might have fans that you can point to, but you also have to be, it's one of those things you are asked to do and be disciplined in, and it's a shame. So proper response, I think anything more extreme would have been worse, given that we've heard a ton about that whole situation and what was going on there. But yeah, if the league did nothing, I think you'd have even louder questions from those that enjoy kind of poking at the certain events like this, the PFFs of the world or whatever that enjoy kind of, at least I feel enjoy waiting for stuff like this to happen and only talking about stuff like this happening. So, it sucks. It really does, because it is midpoint of the season. We had a great week of football, and as unfortunately has been normal the case, any bigger media outlet type of page has to point at, well, UFL player slaps a fan. That's the only thing that came out of this weekend. It's like, really? Yeah, actually, that's par for the course, of course.
Which is unfortunate, because this was probably the best week of football we've had this season, right? Like, I don't know about you. I really enjoyed all 4 of those games this week. Even if your team lost. Now, granted, I really liked it because the Roughnecks
you had a great time. You were thrilled.
Refs law, Zach, you're really going to have to get back on this refs law thing, because love it or not, it's there whether we want it to. Or I'm telling you, it said episode 100. Here you go, fellas. You'll both get a win this weekend. And then you know what happened since then? Refs law. I hate it. Why do I even say things? This is why I shouldn't even talk. Refs law. Free Cybertrucks. Let's see if that works, maybe.
No. Wrong. It's okay. I'll let you.
I can't wait to talk about that.
I'll let you jump back on that trade.
I can't wait. But we got some transactions. Enough about the slap. Everybody's heard enough about the slap. But if we didn't talk about it, people say, oh, they didn't talk about the slap.
The slap heard around the world.
Yeah.
As so of us have deemed.
So we got some transactions here. I mean, let's just start with the big one first, I think. And this is nothing against anybody else, but I mean, Wes Hill's going to Memphis. Not great timing for me. I'll start with that. Free agent signing, coming back into the league, coming to a team who, got their first win last week with Dresser Win, funny enough. Mm-hmm. I made the joke last week. I knew I should have changed my pick. Once I realized, wait, Dresser Win, he's not called Dresser Lose. That should have been the moment I realized, crap.
Yeah, the name says it all. He's guaranteed. You never see a loss with Dresser Win.
Well, at least with the first one. I give him the first one. I'm weird with my football stuff, but anyway, I should have known it there. But now they got Wes Hills. They're adding to their running game at, honestly, the worst time of the season for me. I wish they would have done this a week later because, the Roughnecks are going to play against him. But I don't know. Thoughts from you, Zach? I don't know. What are your thoughts on seeing Wes Hills join the gang over there? You think it's going to bolster them, help them out? Because, again, they still are a playoff hunt-ready team. And maybe turning things on at the right time of the season.
I mean, yeah, I think it's for purposes of, seeing kind of the iron and striking while it's hot, it's definitely something that a person you're adding that I think is more really at this point depth because you already see they put him on the inactive roster and credit some of that could be just later in the week. Sometimes you want to get a guy fresh with a set of practices and going. But I mean, Memphis hasn't been, I would say, too bad in the run game, honestly, this year. They do have some guys, especially Deneric Prince. He's been pretty solid in the backfield this year. I like his game, honestly. And quite frankly, I think that they have their main guy. Jalen Jackson has been too shabby, but I think they want someone that, is another proven talent. You can add a little bit of depth on there. And maybe, like I said, I think this is also just gearing up for a run right now. So, again, while the iron's hot, now they have their apparent guy at quarterback that they feel most confident with, that Noel Mazzoni, I think, feels most confident with after seeing the several weeks prior with E.J. Perry and Troy Williams. They got great backup talents behind the young kid if they want to help coach him up. And, I think it's not bad to have a veteran running back like Wes Hills there as well to kind of bolster that up too. So, I think good move for the moment. I can't complain. Again, it sucks we don't have him back, but I mean, you look at what Michigan's doing over there with themselves, and I mean, they've got a deep set of running backs as well that I understand why West didn't return. I'm glad to see a face like that back in the league because I thought he had a little bit more in the tank, and it sucked that his season last year ended with injury, so possible chance he does hit the field again. It's just I'm not sure he's the number one guy. I think we're back to last year at the end of the season where, it was kind of like turn the corner. Matt Colburn was taking that spot. I kind of feel like Prince has kind of solidified himself as like that number one, but who knows? They could always be looking for a bit more because, I mean, hey, veteran back. I'm just saying. It's proven back, too.
So, who else is out there? And I got to get your thoughts on this. C.J. Johnson doing what he does best.
Oh, yeah.
Making moves, doing it, getting it done. I mean, he got that second win under his belt. And now he's emboldened. He's ready. He knows he's ready to win. He's hunting.
He's here to prove all of us wrong for slandering his name.
He's going to prove all of you wrong. And you know what? Me and him at the end of this, I'm going to invite him to Ted. What is it? Ted Drury's? What is it called? The ice cream place?
Drew's Custard.
Yeah, we're going to go there because you know who's going to be out in St. Louis? C.J. Johnson, because he's going to be out there for the championship game. And him and I, we're going to have a good luck ice cream social. We might split a banana split. It's not called a split for no reason, baby. And somehow we're going to Lady in the Trampet. We are going to, not with the banana. Don't stop, everybody. I was thinking of, I don't know what I was thinking of. Anyway, here he is out here showing the world again. Mastermind coach. Even Isaiah Henney gave him his props last week or earlier this week on Around the UFL.
So
everybody gives my man CJ a hard time. He doesn't need a hard time. You know what he needs? A win and another win. And he's going to get those wins. What do you think of these picks up here? Because he's just, you know what he said? He saw DC, he saw Memphis. He said, "Oh, you're going to cut those guys? They're mine now." What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, look, I look at the moves like, for example, Davin Bellamy. He's not as much needed in DC at this moment, and his production has been I would say highly elevated since like 23. He had a bit of a down year last year, and you look at who's dominating right now with the defenders, and he's kind of just like really more been put into rotational status at best. So Houston could use the pass rush a ton. They only have seven sacks on the year. I just checked. So, I mean, any sort of veteran pass rusher is going to be a boon to them right now, especially someone if they need to rotate. And then you look at Jaquan Shepard. Not much I have to add on, but what they're doing is they're bolstering pieces of their defense that could use elevation. I think is the thing. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, last few weeks it's been a lot better. I'll admit, I think Houston in particular, defensively, that's been kind of their bread and butter, whether it has been CJ Johnson or not in previous years. And that's just me being honest with you. I'm talking, of course, USFL tendency.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Wade Phillips in 23 kind of says itself, so I understand. But, with the Roughnecks, I think what is a big strength to them right now is, first off, they found the guy that should have been quarterback to me, or I think has been not getting the spotlight as he should have been all along, which is Jalen McClendon. I still hold steady that I love Jalen McClendon and what he did with the Vipers, and I'm shocked it took him this long to get to another starting gig somewhere in the league, and it's paying off. They have their number one guy, a decisive, very good, more middle to deep range passer that does operate the offense well for what CJ Johnson wants. So there's that. Also, Tom Cable, veteran offensive line coach, the fact that he is in there and he is coaching those guys up, that O-line's looked a lot better this year too. I got to give him credit, and especially has been looking better the last few weeks. They're starting to find their rhythm there as well. So you add those pieces together. I know that right now they're trying to get Marcus Sims more antiquated ever since the trade, but they're finding a stride, and I think they're finding a rhythm and I think an identity. That's what I think is the thing. I still have my doubts on CJ. I still have worries about CJ, but I think everything around them, whether it's the roster construction, switching, to a different GM this year, and also, getting the right people in the building, I think there is something that's working there. And honestly, they might be smelling blood in the water because as we've talked, and you can touch on this very much so after I finish this point, this conference midway through the year, there really is kind of some blood in the water right now to say, hey, we have a legitimate shot to make some noise. I mean, Birmingham's not looking the way it is. Yes, we did lose close to them, in our previous matchup, but we've been getting better. We found our rhythm now. Michigan, yes, they did lock down Bryce Perkins today, which that's another news piece we can throw out, is that we have a definitive number one QB there again. But again, there's opportunities. So, when you're one game back, anything's possible. Memphis is only 2. That conference got a lot crazier, but Houston, I think, is smelling blood in the water, and they're just making these moves because time's now. Mid-season and you're one game back, don't wait around. Start making your roster moves and get going.
Well, I mean, it's crazy to think that they don't even have just a shot at getting the number 2 seed. They actually have a legitimate shot at getting the number 1 seed.
They do.
As early as this week. Michigan and Birmingham both lose. Houston gets the win. We got a 3-way tie for number 1 in the USFL division. Am I crazy? Am I wrong?
We'll talk the matchups later. Well, yeah, we'll talk the matchups later, but the Roughnecks have had the Showboats number last time. I think they look better than the previous time that they played them. And then, you're looking at, Birmingham and you're looking at Michigan. Minimum, there is a very good chance that you can see the Roughnecks at that number 2 spot in the conference by weekend's end. I'm not kidding. That is a real possibility, barring results, of course, on that Sunday afternoon. So, not kidding.
Which is great. I mean, you get all you really need in the UFL is that number 2 seed. And it's not like they could change that rule in the middle of the season or anything. So, I mean, unless they want to make me angry, just keep the rules exactly as they are, because I don't anticipate anything coming up on that front. But I want to see the Roughnecks there. Me and CJ Ice Cream Social needs to happen, and you cannot rob anybody of that. Are you ready for the Roughnecks? Are you ready for a road trip about the Roughnecks? Because that's what SummerStock's going to turn into, baby. It's going to be ruthless. It's going to be relentless. I'm going to use AI to have some book read in CJ Johnson's voice so we can listen to the audio book. What book do you want to listen to, Zach? Because I'm going to have CJ read it to us in a soft, calm, gentle voice. Unless when he needs to be stern and firm, then he'll let us know.
Just because it'll make him sound like a complete moron to me, catcher in the rye.
There we go. I'm going to make it happen. And we're going to go to an ice cream social.
For the record, this is more because of if we have to do a Houston thing, not because of CJ. I'm sorry, CJ. You get a lot of flack for your call.
CJ's like, dude, I don't want to go to ice cream social.
I hope none of our conversation stems from like us talking about the man. It's more talking about the coach. I want to make that very clear to people. Like, I am honest.
Talking about the man, though. CJ is a great man, the best man. And honestly, people talk about like, oh, CJ needs to get fired. They're crazy. Does anybody not remember Kevin Sumlin? Let me just start there. Does anybody not remember Kevin Sumlin coaching the Gamblers? Because I do.
I remember
I'd
Kevin.
take CJ Johnson over that any day. Any day. And CJ Johnson
if we are
is
being
a man
fair,
of the people.
If we are being fair, CJ's first year after taking over for Kevin was better, by a little bit. So, can't forget that. That's all I got.
And then this year, he's going to have a championship run under his belt. Sign him up. Anyway, we got a whole trade to talk about before we talk about this weekend. So the Texas trade, Arlington and San Antonio, they said, screw it. We're going to swap some guys around. So we have Story Jackson going from Arlington to San Antonio. And Zach, do you know this name, or am I going to just do a really bad job saying it? Because if you don't, I'll try.
I'm going to, Inichukwu is what I got.
Sorry. Yes. So there, we got a trade. What are your thoughts on this trade? Texas trade. I always think that's interesting, especially, you're in the XFL division together. You're potentially going to have to fight each other for that playoff spot. It's similar, like, I don't know, like a head coach getting poached in your division rival in the NFL. Like you shouldn't do that. It should be against the rules, against the law. Like what happened with the Lions and the Bears, by the way. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this always seems strange to see an inter division trade. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this overall move here?
Overall, I feel like this more is leaning on what San Antonio needs. They've been brutalized in the first two levels of the defensive front all season. So I'm not surprised by this move. I think they needed to bolster something up. And credit, this is their, they're kind of looking at their roster right now, and they're also in a very awkward spot because it felt like they had momentum going into last week, and a winnable game against Houston that they could have pulled off did not go at all in their favor in front of a home crowd at all. So, I think for the fact that, Jackson comes in, you can kind of fill some depth for finding someone to kind of take a chance and kind of put in that place. They need to do something in that first two levels, and they've been banged up badly in the run game there. Again, we saw last week the Roughnecks front five bullied that front seven all over the field. So, I think honestly that's a position that the Renegades are a little stockpiled on. And so it's not too bad to kind of see that shuffled off. In the meantime, Arlington, great pass rush, of course. And I think they've been pretty solid in that position. Just, I think Bob Stoops being defensive mind doesn't hurt to get more of a rotational guy and maybe someone else that isn't Chris Odom that's doing damage too. So that's how I view it. I think really this is more of a San Antonio trade, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Because I think Jackson definitely could make an impact, and it's kind of buried in that whole setup. So good, I think good move for them. Just anything that they can do to kind of slow down what has been a very porous front seven compared to previous years is very necessary right now with kind of a do or die mentality going into, I feel, is like this week. Cause yeah, they're not playing an XFL conference matchup as we're talking like against the Stallions here coming up, but any further losses, you're looking at near elimination here very soon in the second half of the season.
Well, especially in the XFL division is not friendly right now. I'm glad I'm not in the XFL division this year. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
But I mean, speaking of, I guess this is a good time to move into week 6. We're finally moving past the halfway point of the season. Week 6. Let's talk about the games. First game up, Friday night special, Friday Night Lights. Every week, I know I say this, Zach, I'm really liking the Friday night games. I'm really liking the Friday night vibes. We got overtime last week, Zachy boy. Like, finally, we got some UFL overtime. And you know what? It happened on a Friday night because why wouldn't it happen on UFL after dark?
Why not?
It doesn't matter what league it is. It doesn't matter if it's the UFL, the USFL, XFL, AF1, as we've seen. If it's a late game, there's some shenanigans, there's something interesting, or it's going to be a crazy game. And this one, honestly, even on paper, whether it was a Friday night game or any game of the week, this one is an important game, especially as we head past the halfway point. We have the Renegades and the Battlehawks taking place. And again, these are in the top contenders for the XFL division, right below the Defenders. So, they're going to want, everybody's fighting for that number 1 spot to get that home field advantage in the playoffs. 8 p.m. Eastern. Man, I waffled so much on this pick, Zach. And I'll be honest, I'm actually not even definitive on who I submitted for my picks. I'm pretty sure I know who it was. I'll start here. I think the Renegades are going to have a little bit of fire under their ass this week. I think after not just losing last week, but giving up the biggest, like, what was it? It was the biggest comeback in UFL history.
Yes.
Nobody likes that record when you're on the other side of it, right? And I'll be honest, Zach, I've waffled on the Renegades. Are they the real deal? Aren't they the real deal? And even as I was watching that game last week, I said, wow, this team, you know what? I think they actually are the real deal. And of course, maybe I am bad luck, Zach. It was maybe at that moment that the comeback began for the Defenders. I don't know. But I'm going to give them a second chance. One, I think the Battlehawks got lucky for a couple reasons. One, okay. Mike Nolan, you're right. You're right to rank the Panthers where they're ranked, even when they were winning, because Mike Nolan be damned. He's putting Etling in that game, and he put Etling in that game. And I won't say that's the reason they lost, but the tide changed, the momentum changed. And I think that's the biggest call out. We're not saying that Etling's necessarily a bad quarterback, but when you have a 2-quarterback system, it really hurts one guy from gaining momentum into a game. When Bryce playing a great game, you take him out. Now he has to fight back after an interception, some extra points. And so I think the Battlehawks got lucky a little bit. I think the Renegades are here to play. We'll see, though. Maybe I'm bad luck. Maybe I said, you know what? The Renegades are the real deal, and that's all that they needed to hear to not be the real deal. I don't know. We will see. Are you going to go back on it? Are they not the real deal, Zach?
No, I think they are, but I'm also going to be a little annoyed and penalize them this week. I'm taking St. Louis. And you know what? The other part of this, in more of a football terms, I actually am impressed what St. Louis did last week. Yes, you can talk about Anthony Beck now. He pointed as like, oh, we were so glad they took Price off the field and, kind of messed up the flow and whatnot. What I am hanging my hat on is I asked myself, could they execute this offense in a way that they were doing with Manny Wilkins, and maybe make him more efficient and operate that way? Yes, they did get outgained by the Panthers on this one by a sizable margin, but what they did well is Max Dugan proved to me that he can run this RPO scheme and he can keep defenses on his toes while he's getting used to his passing responsibilities a bit more. again, I pointed out again during ATU, he ran 10 times alone and only threw 12 passes against the Panthers. So, that's a Manny Wilkins game plan right there. So I think that's possible. My curiosity is, and I'm going to pick St. Louis, knowing that, yes, the Renegades did win last contest against the Battlehawks. Did he learn from his mistakes, and can he open up in the passing game a bit more? Because Arlington will be ready for that RPO concept and scheming. That being said, is Arlington going to be ready for Dugan to run this? Because last time they threw Dugan in, they stuck with a passing only or near passing only concept, and that's kind of him getting thrown in the middle of the game. He looked a bit lost. And I feel like with a little more time, maybe he's a little more confident, and I think that they can execute properly to where they can keep up. Not to mention, sans a pick six, they were on the goal line to possibly tie this one and go to overtime last time. I think there's a chance that they can take advantage and beat the Renegades this time. And, looking back at Bob Stoops and company, I look at a team that, hey, you got to finish. And I feel like this is a prime time for St. Louis to capitalize on a roster that, to me, is really good. And I think has shown that it can be the best team in the league. I was really annoyed at how they finished last week against DC. And mainly it's because of just certain play calls and certain schemings that led to their downfall. So I'm putting St. Louis on the map. I think that they can get up and they can get themselves back in the playoff race with this win. And I think Max Dugan keeps on showing that he just needs a little more time cooking with practices and getting reps. So, yeah, give me the Battlehawks at home on a Friday night affair. And it'll be close, though, but I think they'll pull it out.
So the next game up, man, am I excited for this one, because I'm telling you, this could potentially put the Roughnecks in a spot where I go from just saying it to believing it.
Yeah.
And that's a great world to live in, Zach. I'll tell you this. I love spring football. I watch every spring football game. Generally, though, my favorite games aren't the Roughnecks games. When I watch them, after they're done and I watch all of the games of the weekend, I'm like, well, that wasn't the best game of the weekend. But at the end of the game, not only did we win, but we won definitively.
Yeah.
And did that feel good? I forgot how good it feels, not just to win, but to win convincingly. Now, you could argue that the Brahmas hadn't had a great season prior to that, but I would argue that the week prior, they played an amazing game.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe we'll see this upcoming week. Are the Brahmas really, did they just have fluke luck? Was the change in coaching just the little momentum they needed for that week, and then they faltered out? I don't know, but I'm going to take it as, no, we beat a team that beat a really good team the week prior. And you know what? I think the Roughnecks are going to do it again. Because also, it's tough because the Showboats also had the game of their season last week, right? They beat, maybe not as convincingly, but they did beat the back-to-back champions.
Well, I think
took them to overtime.
Yeah, keep in mind, too, they also beat a team that, has done these come from behind, thread the needle type of wins, and they held out. They won in overtime, and they did fair and square. Yes, it was front loaded, and they didn't have much going on in the second half. Something that I think is going to be brought up in this one if we're going to do picks. But I mean, they definitely held their own. Jaron Horton's defense held when it needed to hold, and they did a lot of stuff to rattle what was a first start for Case Cookis in some time in the first half, especially to make this game where they could sneak away a win here. So definitely a good effort. My question though, and I'll throw it to you with this, is can Memphis put a complete game together? Because I'll be frank, if we're putting these two and matching up again, looking at, only a few weeks apart, yes, I did think Dresser Wynn did play an admirable contest. I think in a very contained contest where he's not creating mistakes like his other compatriots on the quarterback room for Memphis. However, this is to me, a much more formidable Roughnecks squad than even the last one that they lost to. With this time, now that they have a legitimate pocket passer in Jalen McClendon that can dissect defenses or make big plays without having to scramble or kind of wait or have to wait and build a pocket or wait and make a pocket for himself. He can, pick and throw as needed. So big, different type of challenge for Jaron Horton's led crew. Still possibly up to the task, but it's definitely different. And again, you're asking for, I think, a full game and a complete game for Dresser win this time, second start. So less of those jitters, hopefully.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't think people have really caught on yet with the Roughnecks, but believe it or not, the Roughnecks have the second best defense in the league right now, right? They have the second least amount of points put up against them out of any of the games this season, and all of the games collectively. And so I think really this game is going to come down to whoever has the best defense. If Houston can capitalize on Dresser Wynn, let's say Dresser Wynn makes some of the mistakes he was making last week that he got away with. Mm-hmm. He got away with a good amount of broken up passes that I don't know if that Houston defense is going to let him get away with. Right. And so Houston could capitalize on that. On the flip side, though, I'm never going to go into a game against a Jaron Horton led defense and say this is going to be a cakewalk. Right.
Yeah.
And so I know that Jaron and company is looking at all the film. And although there might not be a lot from this season with McClendon, I wouldn't even be too shocked if they're looking back at those Vipers films and things like that. Even looking at, even beyond that to see what types of plays CJ was running, because if there's a guy that's going to be able to dissect what you're doing offensively, it's going to be Jaron Horton.
Yeah.
And you know what? This might come down to really a battle of the coaching, right? It might be less about the players on the field and, okay, offensively, can they come up with enough diversity in their plays to throw Jaron off the defensive game? Similar on the Memphis side, right? And so can the Memphis offense clean up just a little bit, just enough to not have mistakes that they may have gotten away with last week that they might not get away with this week against Houston? Quite frankly, it might not be a very high scoring game, but if you're a fan of defense like I am, this is going to be a fun game to watch. But needless to say, Roughnecks all day, because we need to get in the playoffs, baby. And this is, I'm telling you right here, well, that would put us at what, 3-3, 500 on the season.
Yeah, you'd be 500, which it's been a hot minute since Houston USFL era. Again, this is the USFL coaching staff, has been at 500. So,
well, and remind me, so if Michigan loses or Birmingham loses, they would also be 3-3, right?
They also would be. Yes. If they were to, again, the opponent is San Antonio. So we'll talk on if that's even a possibility momentarily. But, Michigan, I think, is the one that, I think a lot of people's looking at as a very tough contest. How good is this Panthers team and all that? And that'll be the next one on the docket. But if I'm like I said, I'm looking at your opportunities here. If you're Memphis, you're like, hey, we still are in this, but we got to get through and get some revenge here on a team that, we thought, and as Isaiah and D brought up on all around the UFL, they thought they had a legitimate shot, and they've been in games too. It's a thing. Memphis has been close in a lot of these contests this year. Missed opportunities against DC, missed opportunities against their first Roughnecks matchup, missed opportunities against week 1 against Michigan, as they brought up too. So, have they put the pieces together? That's what we're going to find out. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a defensive battle through and through. My honest opinion, though, is I think that Houston gets back to 500. I've got them locked in. It is going to be a slugfest. This will not be a high scoring game, in my opinion. Points will be at a premium, but I've got Houston getting the sweep. I think that having McClendon as that passer, a more decisive passer that's really good at processing the routes, that's the guy they've been needing. I think that he does really well. I think they found a legitimate identity in the run game so far, and they're bolstering that defense. That defense has started to kind of find its rhythm a little bit. Third best scoring defense in the UFL. Total defense for both these teams are not great, but Houston's been on the up and up. I'm going to go with them. I have a few more questions on Dresser Wynn. We'll see if he lives up to the task and plays a more full game, because he's going to need to do that with this Houston squad.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to it. As I was telling you before the show, I just hope I don't get sick before this game. My wife is sick. I can feel myself getting sick. I know what's going to happen. My work week's going to get done and Friday's going to get here and I'm going to be sick. And I need to get to this game because I can't miss it. I can't miss it.
Stay strong. Take your vitamin C.
Yes. I need to go to the store, get some emergency and get all that stuff. But that leads us to Star Wars Day, which I think they're doing Star Wars Day at the game up in Michigan, up at Ford Field for the Defenders heading again to Ford Field to take on the Panthers. I'm going to let you kick this one off. I'm sure you have thoughts. I mean, you start and I'll say my piece.
You know, I do. And I think that for this one, I think this is the game of the week personally, for a few reasons. You got, right now on the stat sheet, you have the two top. I mean, yes, Michigan doesn't hold the tiebreaker in St. Louis, Birmingham, but you have the two top of the conference teams taking on each other. On one side, you got one that's coming off a loss that I think a lot of people felt was a very winnable game with a bit more of in the news flusterings in Michigan with the Samson Nacua news. But I think that's fine by itself. The part that I think a lot of people are talking about, though, that's great is, I don't know why it took this long. Again, I did my crazy rant last week on this show, and I'm okay with it now because praise be the Lord above. They did pick the two-time player of the week quarterback who is in MVP runnings right now in Bryce Perkins to finally start an entire game where Danny Etling is not injured. And again, no words towards Danny Etling, the person. Danny Etling, the player, though, has not deserved the reps since he has come back. And I think it should have been Bryce Perkins' ball the entire time against St. Louis. It's not the main reason they lost, but if you look at that first half, Bryce isn't in. Danny throws a pick. They get a late touchdown to go up 17-6 at halftime, and it makes you wonder what could have been. So, I will point out to that as that is unfortunately a roster decision that was made, but clean the slate. Bryce is your guy. So now you have the de facto top quarterback. To me, top quarterback in the conference right now, one of the tops in the league right now too. And honestly, you have a top quarterback matchup with this one too. As much as I will complain about Jordan Ta'amu being the most erratic passer in this league, he is also one of the most exciting because when he misses, but when he hits big, he hits really freaking big. And last week he did come up, and in the second half, he especially came up and played his ass off and helped lead in a fantastic 15-point comeback against the Arlington Renegades in a game where I thought they were dead in the water and it was going to be the final, me going, aha, we've got it, DC. But no, they've shown up. They're clutch, as Nick Thorne would point to me immediately. And I got to give him props because he would totally say that if he was on the show last week. My deal is this the Michigan team with no quarterback agenda, no whatsoever, that can get the deal done? Because this is your biggest matchup since the Birmingham matchup earlier in the year when you were at home. So you got to keep that in mind. You get another home contest. You're bringing DC from out of town. Can you get this done? And if you're looking at the other side, you're going, look, DC's played some close games this year. They've been really good in the clutch. Can we deliver, and can we smack them in the mouth, and can we keep our foot on the gas, so it was hinted, wink, wink, by some folks that we've talked to from other players in the league that felt like they could have gotten stuff done against DC. We're about to find out because that secondary for Michigan is going to get tested. Yes, again, Jordan Ta'amu's erratic, but boy, they throw a lot, and they are going to find ways to get guys open once in a while, and you're going to have to tackle them down, or you're going to have to be ready to play one-on-one really good in coverage, which we saw last week, OPI or not. Hakeem Butler burned this secondary really bad. That's what I'm going to say. It's going to be on film. It's going to be a big focus this week coming in. And I had a tough time picking, and it almost hurts me to say this. I got to go with the Defenders, and I want to not do this, but, Mike Nolan burned me last week. Mike Nolan finally put me on the other side of this conversation where I'm in the Jake Ball bin now, where I'm saying, Mike, I trusted you, and you made my final straw thrown and cast aside for certain coaching choices that I think were detrimental to what is the mission of a football game, which is you play to win the game. So I'm going with DC because they seem like they have their heads in the right direction as we're playing to win. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mike realized that finally when they made that starting QB choice. But I got to go with the Defenders. They seem like they have right now the best, I think, total combined effort towards wanting and knowing what their vision is for the season. So give me DC. Fun game, though. That's what I'll put.
Oh, it's going to be a real good game. But I'll just say this. 2 words. Refs. Law.
Yeah.
Look at us both. Look
Sure.
at us both falling in line. You say, I don't believe in refs law, but look at you. Look at your picks. First you pick the Roughnecks, then you pick against the Panthers with the Defender. Feels like refs law to me, baby, because you're on track, and you're right, too, because I get it. Now, it's hard to say, but I'll say this. The Defenders, I've been waffling a little bit back and forth, but I've felt, okay, this team does feel like a real deal team. Last week, they kind of proved that. Biggest comeback in league history. You're coming against the Panthers, who, yes, they might solidify on one quarterback this week, but can they stop just whatever it is that DC has in there? Because they go out to win. Like you said, Zach, they are out there to win that game. Shannon Harris isn't on the sidelines for a good time. He's not out there to be the interim head coach even. He's out there to be the head coach and win a damn game. And so I think every move that he makes during that game, every coaching decision that comes through his mind is going to be for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that's to win, especially on the road, especially in a tight XFL division. Panthers be damned. And again, the Panthers are down one guy with Nacua.
Yep.
They're going to stick with one quarterback. Maybe. I don't even believe it, Zach.
No,
we'll see.
I mean, I'm going to be timid about it. That when you have the social media admins also cheering that they finally picked a damn quarterback, I think that that's a good sign that they might actually stick with it this time. So I'm gonna lead with that. You know, it's been kind of fascinating to see that even online, the accounts are even like, yeah, Mike, maybe you should have stuck with one. You know, who knows? It's 5 weeks in, the decision's been made. But no, I'm going to go with DC. I'll tell you the other thing, you know, and maybe this is just the universe speaking to me. You know, every year we watch the league. There's one team or so that I think the universe just is in their corner. And this is where I am with DC. This is why I get very hesitant with DC in episodes. It's because stuff seems to fall in certain ways, but good teams get wins too. Mm-hmm. They get stuff done. But San Antonio had the similar stuff happen to it last year. This is why I get very hesitant. I still think they are a good team. They're going to get a win here, but there is great parity this year, and I still am not fully sold, which is a good thing. If you're a fan of league parity and all that, that's good. But it definitely makes me look like a funny guy. I'm just a hater. No. I see the flaws. Arlington was close. Problem with Arlington, they got soft at the wrong time. They let that win definitely slip away. Just going to be honest 100%. With people. So that's all I got with that. Well, I mean, we got one more game on the docket we've already hinted at, which is San Antonio. Funny enough, I mentioned them, but this is a different beast this year against Birmingham. Which, I mean, first off, I think we're kind of waiting to see, like, I imagine Case gets another nod to kind of, unless, for example, Corral's healthy. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing is that, you know, hey, I mean, you're 3-2, you know, took kind of a rough loss against Memphis last week. You know, I think this is a get-right game as much as you need it bad. Obviously, the Brahmas are going to be, I think, in that territory where we got nothing to lose. We are 1-4. We're seeing our opportunities slip away right now in the XFL side of things when you have the insane parity that is the XFL conference at this time. So they got nothing to lose. But Birmingham, I mean, you're looking at that. You're looking at this right now, 3-2. You know, to me, this kind of reminds me of the 2023 Birmingham Stallions, where it felt like the sky was falling. A lot of people were like, "This is definitely the end of the saga. We're seeing a new champion." It feels like 2 years ago right now. Like, is this is a make or break point? Are you going to hit your right gears right now, Or is there nothing in the tank and this is just a really good set of teams in this year's league? That's what I think people are waiting to see. It doesn't feel like a normal Birmingham season at this time.
No, but I think you kind of pointed out, I think this is their get right game. I think this is it either isn't or it is or it isn't. If it isn't, then yeah, maybe you do start worrying a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. The Stallions, I still think they find a way, this game included. I think the Stallions, this is a good opportunity for them to reset, get some points on the board. And I want to see the names that we're used to. I want to see Jace. And, maybe I'm saying it because we do a show with him every Monday, but I want to see Jace getting that ball. I want to see everybody else, like all the regular players out there, making it happen. I do expect Case to be out there. I think I heard, and don't hold me to this, but I think Corral's out for at least another week or a couple more weeks. So I do expect that we'll get Case behind the rock. And quite frankly, I think Case last week was just not their week. Right. And you could see it. There was frustrations on the coaching. And actually, you know what? I'm going to take a moment to say this because I think the Stallions got robbed a little bit on their super challenge. And you could say, yes, Skip had the wrong number, but Anthony Becht had the wrong number the week prior and they gave it to him.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like they review they're supposed to review all aspects, but I don't know if that was things have been talked about after a week. On the side where they'll make a quick rule change. I don't know if that actually did happen or not, but
who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that interesting. I'm like, well, hold on. Because Beck said 85 instead of 86 or something like that. And they said, well, it's not that, it's this number. And they gave it to him. When Skip said the wrong number, they said, no, there's no hold on that guy. Come on, man. Hold it. You know what? But you know what's messed up is because Dean did see the play that Skip was talking about, and it would have been a penalty. But he didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
Whereas I think even the challenge in the NFL would have gave it to him. Right? Isn't the point of the super challenge to almost make it a little bit easier, not more difficult than the NFL?
Well, I mean, it's supposed to. It's interesting, if we can have a conversation, we should at some point about the super challenges because the use of them this year has been a lot more abundant, but also, I mean, part of it's because they get an extra one now, but it's also a lot more pointed, and I get that that's the usage, but I do find it fascinating because it slows gameplay, but also some of it feels like we're getting like really, really technical on having to look at film and have to eyeball and make a call, and that then leads to what we've discussed in the past where it feels like Dean and Mike both call the game very differently based on the rules, which I'm going to save that for another combo we should have definitely later in the season if it keeps, because it's going to come up again, but keep watching if you haven't been noticing, because I mean, Mike and Dean, we started noticing in our Discord, link in the description, they definitely call the game by the rules a little different. It's almost like a judge in like the Supreme Court on interpretation. It's fascinating.
I blame the Skittles that Dean Blandino has on.
Yes, the candy's got him hyper. He's
all hopped up.
He's all jolted. He can't focus
like
as much.
86,
the rules says
who cares?
This, so.
Anyway, Brahmas at Stallions. I think the Stallions are going to come up. I think they're going to come up big. I actually think they're going to come out with this win. I think the Brahmas are going to have to hit the drawing board just a little bit longer. Or maybe they just did have a fluke game earlier this year, although I'm not so sure. I still think the Roughnecks defense is just that good. And so they just shut them down last week.
Yeah.
And so the Stallions, they're not necessarily going to have an easy win, but I think they're going to have a win here. What say you?
Oh, I'm going Birmingham. Personally, I think another week under Case's belt, that's who we're projecting. It seems will start. I think he'll be a little less erratic. That was the thing that killed me was he looked very rusty first half. Finally hit his stride. I mean, that was the thing is like that we saw old Case Cookus, especially in the second half, running around, slinging it and hitting deep throws accurately, finding guys. So that guy does exist, but it felt like he definitely has not been playing for a minute. Keep in mind his season kind of got injury riddled last year with Memphis to where he got knocked out essentially for a good chunk of the end of the year. So, and the fact that we were sure if he was going to play again, we thought he was into the coaching sphere over at Northern Arizona. So, I mean, good that he's back. And I think that you'll see him this week. I think he'll get a little more tuned because I still believe this is the best line he's played under. Now, credit, he got sacked 3 times last week still, and was still rushed in several instances. You can chalk that up to Jaron Horton's defense. You can chalk that up to him getting back under his feet. That's what I want to watch, because this Brahmas defense has not been really star-studded at all this year. So you should have a bit easier time getting more reps back under your feet. And I think that's what I'm looking to see is, do we see more of the old second half Case Cookus of this past week kind of step out? And I think that'll bring a lot of Brahmas or a lot of Stallions fans some confidence. It'll ask more questions about the quarterback situation as the year goes on. But, if the old Case Cookus shows up, I think a lot of people will be thrilled to see that case, especially with Alex Magoo out on IR and Matt Corral's, dealing week to week at this point. So good game to get that. San Antonio is not going to slouch. This is, again, do or die, but this is Birmingham's game to lose, honestly. It's at home as well. Yeah, this is theirs to lose. This is a game that they should knock down, and hopefully they're hoping get back into the driver's seat at 4-2 with a loss DC way to Michigan. So that's what we're looking at.
Start getting ready for their battle against the Roughnecks in the playoffs.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, they just might as well start right now, because that's going to be a tough one. We get to beat them. Face them one more time this season. We didn't beat them the last time, but
it was a tight contest, different quarterback, but still, Houston played up to the task. They just couldn't get the job done. And that was in relief effort with Jalen. So, in theory you should have more reps. You should get more comfortable. Maybe things could change. We'll find out.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And we'll find out soon. And actually, isn't next week Refs Law the game? Is that week 8?
Well, the end of the season
next week. Yeah. Next week is Houston Birmingham. That's right. So that's when we get our revenge game. Week 8 and week 10, Refs Law the game. I can't wait.
I was gonna say end of the year. We will talk, but my thing is already. I can't even argue against the law because it's forcing it in my hands.
I don't want it either, too.
The wording alone is it's impossible. I can't dodge it, and you can't tie in the UFL. So, you're kind of stuck. There's no dodging the law here. 2 of the 3 last weeks of the season, I'm gonna be like, yeah, refs law. It's a thing.
I know. They handed me on a silver platter. At least last week of the year, we're giving you a free refs law. They're giving me 2 refs law the last 3 weeks. Sign me up.
2 refs law. Good for you.
It's like the free spot on bingo. Refs law, week 8 and week 10.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what the record for refs law will be at the end of the year.
I know. We have one good old double win. The first time since 2022.
They're usually double loss, so it's kind of surprising, actually.
Well, that's dark refs law I've figured out, and luckily my lights have been on, so hopefully CJ doesn't make my lights.
Nah, I don't think he's showing up again. There's too much optimism right now for the dark ref to show up.
I hope so. Well, you know what I mean. Got a big week. I'm looking forward to the big week. And then soon, like I said, we're going to be driving across the country. You'll get to see, we always do kind of behind the curtains anyway, but I think you'll see it to another level with Zachy Boy and I driving across the country, about 1,000 miles, definitely over 1,000 miles. Once you add in the time that you're traveling from Arizona to Texas. Mm-hmm. So we haven't really talked about that. You still got to get here. Yeah. And so there's definitely over 1,000 miles that we're collectively traveling, and that's just there. So on the way back, it's about 2,000 miles that we're doing here. And like I said, the way back, I thought about it the other day. I haven't even looked, but there's got to be things on the way back that we could hit up. We don't need to make a whole project out of it like this, but between you and I want to stop at weird side road attractions. Like if there's the biggest ball of yarn and it's on the way, sweet. And once we're done recording, we're looking at this Graceland thing, because if we can fit that in, then I'm totally down with that. But I think that's it. Any other final words before we head off into the week 6 of the season?
Not really. I mean, I could sing some Bon Jovi. We're living on a prayer. All of our teams are right now. We are halfway there, too. Yep. Mind you. So everyone's living on a prayer. It's the final chances for some teams. It's a new time to reinvigorate your fan base for a few more. 5 games left. Who will be the strongest to survive heading to the playoff push? It's getting kind of dicey. It's getting kind of fun for the conferences this year. It's getting real fun.
Yeah. No blowouts right to being like in the playoffs this year, which I think we all appreciate a little bit. But here's what you can do for us, guys. Subscribe, click the bell. It builds morale. It lets you know when we go live, just like Monday nights with Around the UFL. It'll let you know when we drop new videos, just like this one, the UFL podcast, just like SummerStock, the road to the UFL championship. You don't want to miss that one. So make sure you do those things. Like the video as well. It's free. It costs nothing. It makes you feel good. Maybe it doesn't give you morale, but it makes you feel good. You need a little bit of luck. You need to get your team into the playoffs. Do the things I just mentioned. That'll bring you the good karma. That'll bring you the good aura. That'll get you signed up. But I think that's about it. So until next time, guys, sign you up.